Awesome. Let's get started. So, hi everyone, and welcome to our fourth community meetup on contributing to LocalStack. So, Hacktoberfest 2022 is going on, and it is a great month to get started with all of your open source contributions, which includes code-based contributions and no-code-based contributions. So, LocalStack has been there as an open source project for the past 5 years now, and it is a great opportunity for us to give back to the community by helping out new open source contributors through Hacktoberfest. So this entire community meetup is all about getting you started with local stack code base and also helping you understand the various projects that you can contribute to and what sort of contributions you can make, what kind of prizes you can get by contributing to local stack. And we will also walk through some of the local stack's internal machinery and code base to help you get started with the whole thing. So this meetup is being recorded and it will be put over our YouTube channel. So if you have not checked out LocalStack's YouTube channel, I will just share a link over here so that you can just hit a subscribe button and you can check out all our videos over there. This meeting will also be anonymized, so we cannot really identify who is saying what in the chat, or if you are speaking of something, you will not be visible in the recording itself. And yeah, that's pretty much the agenda for today's meeting. The first, we will be discussing about what Hacktoberfest is. Then we are going to discuss about local stack and the open source landscape that we are a part of. Then we are going to discuss like where exactly can you start making contributions, what projects within local stack are participating in Hacktoberfest right now. And finally, we will be discussing like how you can contribute to local stack. And this will be followed by a very thorough walkthrough around the local stack code base. We will be picking up a very simple issue and we will try to find a fix for that. And we will make a substantial contribution to the local stack code base. So if you have not set up local stack on your local machine yet, we have actually sent out a mail that details the development environment setup. I'll also put the link over here so that you can just figure out on how you can set up local stack on your local machine before you actually start up with all your contributions. Finally, we are going to have the Q&A session, and this is where you can ask all of your questions. And as Thomas mentioned, we have a lot of folks in this meetup from our engineering team. So you can ask any service-related question or something that's very specific about local stack with them. And even after this meetup, you can just connect with them over the community Slack and you can get all the answers for your questions. So let's jump to the first agenda of our today's talk, and that's welcome to Hacktoberfest. So a lot of folks might be already familiar with what Hacktoberfest is. If they are not, then Hacktoberfest is a month-long open source celebration. And it was originally brought up by DigitalOcean, I guess back in 2014, where they wanted to support more and more open source developers to start contributing to open source software. And I've personally been a Hacktoberfest participant for past 3 years now. And it has been a great program for newcomers to get started with a lot of new open source projects. So one of the core tenets of Hacktoberfest is about contribution and collaboration. And this year, they are not just focusing upon no-code contributions, but also they're not just focusing upon code-based contributions, but also no-code contribution. So stuff like documentation, product design, evangelism, outreach, these contributions are also accepted. And we are more than happy to participate in Hacktoberfest for the very first time. So we have 4 or 5 projects right now that are accepting Hacktoberfest contributions, and we would be more than happy to help all of you in getting started up with these projects. So why you should be joining Hacktoberfest after all, and why specifically LocalStack? Because there are so many awesome projects out there. The very first thing is if you're joining Hacktoberfest and if it is the first time you're contributing to open source, LocalStack can be a great place for your start with the open source world. A lot of engineers who are working with us, they started working with LocalStack through the open source project itself, and it provided a very great base point for everyone to converge and understand on how we are developing LocalStack pretty much in the open source domain. Second, contributing to LocalStack can help you give back to the community and understand our local cloud development paradigm and how it exactly plays out, and how it is significantly different from how cloud development is actually done right now. Third, it will allow you to collaborate with a lot of contributors across the world so that you can learn and build a lot of stuff around LocalStack itself. So not just about code-based contributions, but even you can start making your own LocalStack specific applications if you're already experienced well with AWS. Or maybe if you want to work something on documentation, you can try expanding our documentation or trying making the existing documentation accessible to a lot of new folks. And finally, you can just push your limits further. You can take some new learnings, take some new advice, take some new feedback from the engineers and the maintainers at LocalStack, and you can be a part of the LocalStack community. After all, the sky is the limit over here. If you want to check out more of the Hacktoberfest values, we definitely recommend you to check out the Hacktoberfest's participation page. because it contains a lot of information about what are the things that Hacktoberfest is expecting from you and how you can be a great contributor through Hacktoberfest itself. So, what are the local start prices? Because Hacktoberfest has already been famous because of the standard pricing model that it follows. So, apart from the regular Hacktoberfest price that offers you a T-shirt based upon 4 pull requests, we are offering a 3-tier based price model. The very first one is if you're making 4 contributions, and it is completely irrespective of whether they are getting merged or not. Of course, we are not going to accept any spam contributions or something that goes against our community guidelines. But if you're making 4 contribution, we can definitely support you via local stack t-shirt. And it's really fancy because I'm wearing this right now. So I can definitely attest to that. If you're making 10 contributions on any terms, like it can be a code-based contribution or a no-code contribution, you will be getting a local stack t-shirt, and you will also be sponsored with an Amazon $25 gift card. So just buy anything that you feel like, and we would be happy to support you in that. And for the person who is coming up with the best contribution, and when I'm saying this, we already have 2 or 3 nominees for this particular prize. You will be getting a local stack gift box. This is more than just a t-shirt, and it is a certain surprise for the person who gets it. And they will also be getting an Amazon $50 gift card. So the best way in which you can get started right now is to participate in this meetup, get to know how you can contribute to local stack, stick with us till the end, and also join our Slack community. So you can just navigate to slack.localstack.cloud. You can join the community channel over there, and you can start sharing your contributions that you're making right now, because that is going to help us a lot in helping us validate on which contribution is going to be the best one. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much about Hacktoberfest 2022 and LocalStack. I will uh, give the stage to Thomas, who will be talking a bit about LocalStack and open source and how both of them play out. So over to you, Thomas.
Thank you very much, Harsh. That was a great introduction to Hacktoberfest. Um, so hi, everyone. I'm Thomas. I'm one of the co-founders of the company behind LocalStack, and I currently lead the engineering department. We have a significant engineering team running most of the contributions in LocalStack. So I'm particularly excited to open up the open source repositories more and encouraging contributions. And I'll talk you through briefly what LocalStack is for those who aren't familiar. We had a couple of answers there, and briefly explain where you can make contributions, what the repository looks like. So LocalStack is just a really quick rundown, not much marketing. LocalStack is in essence a cloud emulator. So you can run AWS workloads on your local machine. So LocalStack provides this emulated AWS services. So you spin up LocalStack, and it exposes all of the APIs that AWS does. And you can then run your application, your tests, your Terraform configuration, whatever it is the tool you're using against AWS, you can also run that against LocalStack. So you can develop on your local machine. Development cycles are very fast because LocalStack spins up very quickly. It's just this ephemeral container that state gets destroyed afterwards. And you can run LocalStack in CI as well. So it's a lot faster than AWS. So your continuous integration tests speed up, and you can then be confident to deploy to the cloud once you've tested your application thoroughly with LocalStack. And when you're deploying to the cloud, basically everything, the only thing that happens is you're replacing our emulated services with the real AWS services, which again behave in the same way. So LocalStack, as Harsh already mentioned, basically comes packaged as a Docker container. LocalStack comes with a CLI. You can download that. It's just pip install LocalStack, and then you can start the Docker container via our LocalStack CLI with LocalStack start. With -d, you start it in detached mode, so it just runs in the background. And then we have a few wrappers for AWS tooling, for common AWS tools like the CLI. So if you've worked with AWS before, you've probably used the CLI, the AWS CLI to do something in AWS. You can use the AWS CLI with a configuration parameter. You can also just use AWS local, and it will make the requests against LocalStack. So you can see this is just some S3 and SQS commands that work in the same way. Looks a bit peculiar sometimes, like SQS queue URLs look a bit different than in AWS, but essentially the behavior is the same. So if you're interested in how to use LocalStack, what features, what services we've implemented, you can head over to docs.localstack.cloud and find out more. There's a bunch of information also about integrations, so how you can use CDK, Terraform, serverless, SAM with LocalStack. So if you're not familiar with LocalStack tooling, feel free to head over there and find out more. So LocalStack does come with a pro offering. So we support, I think by now it's over 80 services in total, 80 AWS services. Some of them are exclusive to LocalStack Pro, and I'll briefly explain like how that works with the open source repository. So all of our repositories can be found on GitHub in our LocalStack organization repository, and the main repository that you probably care about is the LocalStack repository. There's a bunch of other open source repositories there, the documentation, all of our wrapper tools. So the AWS local command that you saw earlier sits in AWS CLI local repository, similar to like serverless. And we also have a wrapper for Terraform. And we also have sample applications. So we have a bunch of Terraform samples that you can run against LocalStack. We also have samples that use LocalStack Pro services. Those are all open source, and there's a tiny bit closed source, which is the code base for LocalStack Pro. So I'll just briefly maybe switch to GitHub here and browse through the repository. So you can see a bunch of information here of how to contribute and pricing model about LocalStack. So this is also a great way to find out more about LocalStack. Here in the pinned repositories are some of the core repositories that we work a lot on and that are important to us. So LocalStack, docs, and some of our wrapper tools. And down here, if you go to the repository search, you can actually type in Hacktoberfest'. And see all of the repositories that are marked with our Hacktoberfest tag that you can contribute to. In the context of Hacktoberfest, you're also welcome to contribute to other repositories, and we can figure out whether those count as Hacktoberfest contributions, but those are the ones we observe mainly. So Harsh will later talk a bit about how you can make code and no code contributions. All of these repositories allow both. So when you're doing more no code, you'll work in the docs and maybe some of the reproducer repositories. Harsh will explain that. And if you look into code contributions, Dominic will show you how to make a contribution end-to-end in LocalStack. But I just want to real briefly open up this repository and sort of browse through the structure of the repository. So LocalStack is a Python project. The entire LocalStack codebase is Python. We depend on some third-party services which are not Python related, but mostly you don't need to worry about those. So as I mentioned, LocalStack is this AWS emulator. So most of the code relates to AWS services, and you can find that in the LocalStack folder in the root package. In the services package, there's all of these different service providers implemented. And if we look into one of those, maybe look at SQS, you can find a file called provider.py. And if you open up this, you can actually see the code for this particular implementation of the service. So let's look for a SQS provider. You can see it implements the SQS API, which is the API methods that AWS API exposes. And down here, you can just see implementation of a particular API method, create queue, for example. So if you're working on services, this is where to look at. Dominic will explain a bit more about our integration test setup. We have a fairly extensive test suite that run tests against both LocalStack and AWS. And you can find that organized in the tests package. There are unit tests and integration tests. Those are the two tests folders you probably care most about. And in the integration test suite, we also have tests for each particular service. So you can see the individual services tested here. And let's look for the test SQS, for example. There's a particular integration test suite for SQS. Also, a great way to contribute is to add additional tests. And as I said, Dominic and Harsh will explain a bit more about this. Okay, so I hope that gives you a good overview of sort of the open source landscape of LocalStack, where you can contribute. Really, most of it's open source, so you really don't need to care too much about this LocalStack Pro. If you're writing LocalStack Pro samples, you can contribute there. We're happy to assist with LocalStack Pro keys for the duration of Hacktoberfest, should you care to contribute samples that require access to LocalStack Pro. Okay, and with that, I hand over to Harsh.
Sure. Can I start sharing my screen?
Sure.
Cool. So what are the places where you can make contributions? I guess this part has been made entirely redundant because Thomas has already explained it so well. But I can just briefly go about what each of these projects exactly need in terms of contributions. So the very first thing is we have the LocalStack community code base, and this is something that Thomas has already explained spectacularly. So if you're looking to contribute to LocalStack community code base, all that you can get started with is adding some new AWS services, improving the testing because some of the test suite that we are using is the unit test, and you can try migrating that to PyTest. Like there is an issue that I need to create for that, but this is also a great way to contribute over there. And as you can mention on the LocalStack community code base is that we have a lot of issues. And some of these issues might relate with the LocalStack community right here, while some of these issues might relate with the pro code base that we have in a private repository. So if you're looking to contribute to LocalStack community, the very first thing that you can exactly do is to acquaint yourself with how LocalStack works. The LocalStack documentation serves as a great place for you to get started with that. And once you do that, you can particularly start with triaging these issues, trying to find out what exactly is going wrong and how you can exactly fix them out. For example, if you pick up a particular issue, like let us say the API gateway endpoints are executed sequentially and not in parallel, the very first thing is you can do is you can try reproducing this issue. And if you are looking to contribute, you can go to a separate repository which is troubleshooting issues. This was created by one of our engineers. And what you can do is like you can create a separate folder over here, and it should contain the exact files and everything that the particular user has provided that allows you to check if this issue really exists or not. If this issue really exists, you can try making a contribution over here, and you can try providing a resolution of what exactly the user should be doing to fix this particular issue out. If this is an issue that relates to a particular regression or some sort of a bug that is present in the LocalStack community code base, you can either try fixing that bug yourself or you can just let us know so that we can get started with fixing that out. All sort of contributions are pretty valid here, and we are looking for more and more folks who can help us triage these issues because some of these issues are pretty like stale, and some of these we didn't had any time to exactly look at. So contributing to through Hacktoberfest is a really great way through which you can just go through all of these issues, and you can find out on which ones exactly needs our attention and which one you can particularly solve out. Apart from this, we have got the local stack docs. And again, with any other documentation based projects, we need more and more documentation to cover the existing services that we have. And we also need a way to make our existing documentation accessible. So the good part about local stack docs is that we already have a very good backlog containing some of the documentation based issues. So you can start picking up on particular tickets, and like you can start providing a resolution for that in form of a pull request, and we would be more than happy to assist you in contributing through local stack documentation itself. Then we have got the local stack samples. And if you're someone who is more interested towards creating examples or maybe like writing some blogs or writing some community posts out there, like creating these local stack pro samples are a really great way of doing this because you can just get onto AWS documentation or you can just get onto some community based samples and you can try like putting this inside local stack and you can try to see like if this exactly works out. So we have a lot of pro sample coverage that covers a lot of the AWS services that we're supporting. So if a particular AWS service is missing out here, you can start creating a local stack pro sample for that. Again, as Thomas mentioned, you can request us for a particular pro license key, and we'll be happy to support you for a month so that you can exactly work around with some of the pro APIs that we're offering as part of the local stack pro support. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the projects that you can contribute to and what exactly you should be contributing. So again, code-based contributions is just one way in which you can contribute. Apart from this, you can get onto documentation, you can get onto outreach, you can help us with issue triage. You can also start asking some questions to the users who might be running into issues with LocalStack. And we would ensure that all of these kind of contributions are tracked somewhere so that we can get you all the prizes that you're entitled for. If you're someone who is coming from a content development background, you can also help us evangelize LocalStack so that we can put up a strong word in front of the community about what LocalStack is doing and how we are growing as an open source project. Again, no sort of contribution is big or small. Every pull request counts or every contribution counts over here. If you're particularly contributing by no code, there are three main streams in which you can contribute to. The very first thing is like you can get started with writing some new tutorials, new user guides, and blogs for LocalStack. Uh, LocalStack has got a hashtag publication, and it is a great way in which you can put out some of your blogs in front of the LocalStack community. So right now there is just one blog, but if you're interested to contribute more blogs to the hashtag publication that we have, I would definitely recommend you to get in touch with us so that we can help you out on those perspectives. Apart from this, you can also create tutorials or user guides on your own, and you can maybe put it on your own blog publications. And we will try to ensure that all of these contributions are tracked. If you're more interested towards helping out the other users, you can answer those user queries, you can try the issues. You can also send feedback to us because we have a discussion pages. That's a very great place to pass on feedback about certain services that we are releasing out. For example, we have recently released out local stack insights that gives you a more fine-grained view of how your local stack is exactly working out. Like for example, what sort of APIs you're working with, or what sort of clients you're connecting with, and more of that. So you can just take it for a run, and you can provide us some feedback about how we can improve this feature, and we would be more than happy to accommodate that as a contribution as well. And finally, you can evangelize about us. You can help us make new content, or maybe you can make your own content like YouTube videos, or maybe organizing a meetup and more. And you can help us build out a great community out there. So there are plenty of ways in which you can contribute by no code, and we definitely appreciate all of the contributions that are coming in. So I guess that ends my part about contributing to local stack by no code. And I guess I can give the stage back to Dominic, who will be explaining in much more depth about how you can get started with contributing to local stack. So over to you, Dominic.
Yes, thanks a lot, Harsh. So give me just 1 second so I can share the screen. Okay, there it is. Okay. Please let me know if everyone can see the screen. The font size is okay for you. And then we can get started. So the topic that I want to discuss is how to contribute to LocalStack. I hope everyone has seen the introduction by Thomas already about how to set up your local development environment, how to set up how to run LocalStack locally, and what you need to do that. We're basing on this assumption, so we assume that you already have installed all the necessary requirements, such as checked out LocalStack and run at least once make install, and you also managed to run LocalStack locally without it immediately failing. And under this assumption, we can now want to show the end-to-end process of contributing a change to LocalStack. Okay. So what we're going to do is we have an issue, a self-introduced issue in that sense, and we'll write a test for this, fix it, and at the end see basically how we get this fix into LocalStack again. Okay. Let's maybe go in GitHub. So this is the setup. So we have our local IDE with everything configured. So this is basically where the introduction from Thomas in terms of setting the development environment left off. And this is again the assumption. So Harsh already talked about how we can find issues. One of the best ways to find issues is checking out GitHub. So we have these tags here. the most important one is good first issue. So these are fairly low-level issues that you can check out that don't need too much pre-existing knowledge of LocalStack to work on. So in terms of the current season, there's also the Hacktoberfest, and so we also have the Hacktoberfest label as well, which you can then work on. And all of these tags that are tagged, or all of these issues that are tagged with Hacktoberfest, when they are resolved by you, so resolved in that sense means you have created a pull request that was successfully merged, then they will count towards your score, and which would then determine any rewards you will receive. Okay, so you can already see how this looks like. We have different kind of also we already talked about this with different types of contributions. So in that sense, there are bug fixes, there are feature enhancements, additions, completely new features. But the most common one you'll find are bugs, especially, which will also be especially interesting for you probably since they're easier to tackle them. Okay, you also can filter these by the specific AWS service if you have some pre-existing knowledge and are inclined to work on these. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we basically now assume that we have such an issue. So the issue this issue basically just says that, or the issue is that in CloudFormation there are stacks, and they have a status, and basically someone noticed that the status when deleting a stack is incorrect, and that's something that we can then just basically fix and make it work again. Okay, so how do we do this? Let me check this. So first we need to reproduce the issue. In our case, we already have we'll basically write an integration or a test to immediately reproduce this. So I first want to go a bit into how our tests are structured. So I will collapse everything again so that you can see the root structure. So this is the cloned repository. Okay, one thing I should actually say before is when you create an issue or when you create a PR on an issue, you first need to fork LocalStack so that you can actually work on it. So how you can do this is when you're on LocalStack and you're logged into your account, you can just click fork. It will create basically a fork, so a cloned version of this in your own account. So like this, for example, and you can then check or clone this repository, and you can then afterwards open a PR. So you'll see later how this looks like. Okay, so again, you can see also here, this is the fork that we're targeting. So our tests are structured in like unit tests and integration tests. The other ones are not that important for you right now. These are just additional setup tests. The integration tests are the ones that are most important since we're usually trying to ascertain if we're in parity with AWS. So we actually try to do end-to-end tests of the whole scenario against AWS and see if both LocalStack and AWS are in parity and behave the same way, return the same values, and things like this. In integration, we separate by service. So this is currently not yet completely in a uniform way, but usually these start with test underscore and then the service name. this when they're getting a bit too big, so we have to start splitting them. They just have their own folders, so you can find, for example, CloudFormation files in there. We're currently reworking them, so they will be much more easily, I guess, digestible. So they will be split a bit apart a bit and then grouped better. But for now, what we're looking for is this test CloudFormation stacks file. So what we're going to do is we create basically a new test. The tests in here currently are not structured the way they should be. So what we're going to do is also do this the way that is recommended in our developer guide. So we recommend to group tests in classes. So let's say we have a test information delete stack, or it's just test information stack API. And in here, we have to create a test method. We're using PyTest, so these prefixes are not optional. Otherwise, these tests just won't be found. So we create font, and now basically create the test. The first thing we need to write a test here is we need a client. So when you create a resource on AWS, you need a client to make these requests for you. So in here we have fixtures. So PyTest has specific fixtures that we have defined for you. And this is, for example, the CloudFormation client. So these are the most simple versions, but in our or in a lot of cases, what we do is we provide higher level fixtures, which just provide additional functionality or abstract away some of these concepts. So one of these is, for example, this deploy CFN template, which just takes care of some of the boring stuff when trying to deploy a template. So we can just do this. Usually what you'll probably do is you'll look at how other things are structured and try to follow them as much as possible. Let's see if we can have something that's not too complicated here. We can just take, I guess, the pre-formatted one. So where's this one? So actually I just wanted to take this one here. It doesn't really matter for our test currently which resource we're deploying. So it doesn't matter that this is testing like an event bus, since we're testing things on the CloudFormation API level. Okay, so we have the same setup as here, but we test different things now. Use the photo client now to eat the stack again. So what this fixture does, you can always navigate in here if you're unsure about what a specific fixture does. And this navigates to our testing package, which has some useful PyTest structures, or utilities and fixtures. One of them is here, and then you can just check out this implementation if you're interested. So what we're going to do is we're just basically deleting the stack and capturing the response here. We need to, when testing in general against LocalStack, you might be inclined to assume always that what you're testing is is immediate. So that if you delete something, that is immediately gone, or if you create something, it's immediately created. But please be aware that when you're writing a test to reproduce something or to cover a change, like if you add a new feature and you need to cover it with a test, just make sure that if there are resources that have an asynchronous status that in the background on AWS just changes over time, that you wait for the specific status that you need. Photo has a nice feature, so we create a waiter here. And here you can see which conditions we can wait for. We can wait for this stack delete complete, for example. But we can also like for the change that. Exactly. So let me see. We just do wait stack name. Here we again take the stack name from above. And what this does is just it creates the it just calls basically the internal CloudFormation API method to check the status until it verifies that this state is successfully reached. So after this, we know at least that this status is reached, and now we can create or we can assert the status. So let's just check this one again. So we should be able to let me check, describe the stack name. And now we can write an assertion. So which is nice that PyTest allows us to do these assertions. In this case, we know there's only a single stack, so just select this one. And then we can just check, okay, which stack status do we want? In our case, this is the delete status. Okay. Now, let's see how you actually execute a test against LocalStack. So first, we just select this and just use the defaults, basically. So PyTest creates a run configuration for us, which just see here. It's just basically empty everywhere and just specifies the module name. So let's see, this should. Okay, so one thing we immediately notice, okay, we don't know what's going on. So, or why it's, for example, taking a long time. We have a few environment drivers that make your life easier. One of them is the general debug one. So you can set this to just one to get additional debug information. There's also the log CLI level. Please correct me if I'm not wrong. And we have an additional output basically, so we know, okay, what's going on internally in LocalStack, which already helps us dig down more into this issue. So we see there's that we are here, but something is stuck, right? So we see we have a resource request. So this CloudFormation resource that we specified, this event bus is trying to be created, but the delete here, so it does delete, but afterwards it seems to be kind of stuck in this state and just repeatedly tries this describe stacks command. Without these debug logs, this would be fairly hard to see. So what you should definitely avoid in terms of this waiter, so you should always use something like this, or we also have a sync package where you can use other constructs like polling and retrying. But what you should not do is doing something like this, the time sleep, and just waiting a specific time, because this is very flaky and will not work in a lot of cases. So let's check out the basically the location of this issue. So you can see always where this originates, the logging statement, and we know this is in this template deployer. So let's go there. So we expect this create delete read, and we see okay that seems wrong. So let's maybe change these and see if that works. And we do actually pass. So this is a very simple bug fix that we just found. We also extended the coverage here, since we now have a test that actually verifies this. And we still don't really know like what the behavior on AWS is. So what we would need to do is now run, or what we try to always do is run tests against AWS. And we have a specific marker that shows that the test has successfully been run against AWS, which is PyTest mark AWS compatible or validated. It's validated. This just means that the test successfully runs against AWS. And I'm going to show you how you can set this up. So we don't need this one. So let's just call this question test. This was the one that we just executed just with debug set. And we're going to duplicate this run config. We're going to target AWS now. And we have a few helpful, or one specific helpful environment variable that lets you switch the clients that are used in this fixture, so these ones, to target AWS instead of the LocalStack instance. So the test target variable has to be set to AWS Cloud. And I'll also show you what happens if you do not configure anything else. So if you now try this, you'll see very quickly that this fails. And that's just because we don't have credentials currently. So when you test against AWS, what you need is AWS credentials. If you do not have yourself an account, then feel free to just ask in the PR for any contributors to do this for you, to basically check your integration test against AWS and if there are any issues. We know that not everyone has access to like a live AWS account, which is also sometimes the reason that you're working with LocalStack, obviously. So now we need to add an AWS profile. So I do assume that in this case, since you're trying to run this against AWS, that you do have a AWS CLI set up and a valid credential here. We just set a region and a profile. The profile just points then to the credentials that are used to authenticate. So this is the access key and the secret key ID. Okay, now we have this, and now we can just test this again. Actually, shouldn't take too long, but might take a few seconds. While this is going on, I will show you basically how this looks like in terms of what you can expect from PRs.
I guess we're slowly wrapping up, right? It's getting to towards the end.
So yeah, I mean, we can also we'll let this run, but we'll also just try to make a new branch. So you can delete, for example. We're gonna push this branch. This is now in our local or in our fork. So we don't want to introduce an issue, obviously, but we want to fix like a cloud permission, delete issue, or we should be a bit more descriptive here. We should fix cloud permission status on this. You can then just add a few notes. Usually it would be good if you just have a short summary of what you're actually doing and link the like a specific issue. So this is obviously not an existing issue, but when your PR is then merged, then the issue will also be closed, and this will then automatically be linked, and then just change this. Okay. If you're unsure, you can create like a draft pull request if you're still working and want to get some feedback, or you can just directly create a pull request. Make sure that it's against the base repository of LocalStack. So from your fork, you want to create a PR against LocalStack. So, okay, and now the CI will run. In some cases, some CI parts will not run. So you can see, for example, this one is not running. And these are just because they're running against a fork and not against a local branch. And the other tests might also have to be approved first by a maintainer. So don't worry if they're not running. A maintainer just has to approve them. So afterwards, someone will be reviewing your PR and will make suggestions. So a very short overview here, how this will look like. This here. So this is like also an older in-house review. So you can expect us to look into a lot of things. So don't be intimidated if there are a lot of remarks, a lot of small nitpicks that we have, or just questions that we have. Another, let's see, for example, here, this is a bigger one with a lot of just questions, just nitpicks, just suggestions sometimes. So maybe we know, okay, we have utilities for this, so you have to, or you should use them, obviously, but you might not know that these exist beforehand. So don't worry, we just will point you towards those. And what we also usually ask you is then to provide a test. So that's what we already did here, but and we usually try to make sure that every change that comes into is covered by a test. So if there's not a test already in your PR, we'll point you to that issue and ask you to fix that, and then we review and hopefully get it merged. Yes, so if everything is green, if the PR is approved, all the issues are addressed, then we'll squash and merge the PR. So if you have multiple commits in there, they will be unified into a single commit and added to master. Okay, let's see. I think we're mostly it. So we do have the with the branch. Yes. Don't think there's time unfortunately for the snapshots, but if you're interested more in also these testing concepts against LocalStack, we have an awesome developer guide that you've also seen in the presentation. You can find it here on the docs LocalStack Cloud and Developer Guide. There are two subcategories for testing, so integration testing and parity testing. And we also have an awesome blog post that goes a bit into how we verify parity and how we do this. So as you can see here, so we have these snapshots, and you can read more about how this works in our blog post here. Okay. there any questions?
It's a pretty deep and thorough intro into this. This was great, Dominic. If you're intimidated by this process, don't be. Contributions can also be smaller. Specifically, what I should maybe add also to the tests is that if it's overwhelming for you to write one of these tests, it's okay to point that out in a pull request and ask us to help. So if it's not possible to you due to whatever reasons, we can help.
Definitely, even if you just have some steps when you're using the AWS CLI, for example, to reproduce an issue, or you're using another tool like CDK or Terraform, as long as it's reproducible. So if you have, just include everything that's needed to reproduce this, and then we can basically try to translate this into one of our integration tests and make sure that this change is then covered by the test.
Awesome. Should we maybe conclude?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Awesome. So I guess we are almost at the end of this. So thanks, Thomas, and thanks, Dominic, for explaining all the nits and grits of contributing to LocalStack. And as a concluding note, Hacktoberfest is just a month long, but we would be accepting contributions from all the external contributors all the year round. So even if you are like tightly packed during the Hacktoberfest time, we'll be more than happy to onboard you after Hacktoberfest. And if you're interested to contribute to LocalStack, our projects are always open source, so you can keep contributing to it. So a few of the points that I would mention is if you're contributing to LocalStack, don't try to put out as many PRs as possible. Always try to focus upon the quality of the PRs and try to make sure that whatever you're putting forward is actually beneficial for us in the long term. Other than that, LocalStack has a pretty great engineering team. So it would be great if you can connect with the maintainers and our engineers. If you want to get started upon any particular issues and you might want to share the progress with the rest of the folks, uh, always be nice and respectful to everyone in the community because not everyone is an engineer. So it might be totally possible that you will be talking with someone who is just getting started with AWS and LocalStack right now. And it would be great if you can share your technical expertise with the rest of the folks who are also looking to contribute to the organization. And finally, if you are like looking to work on any particular issue, just make sure that you express your desire to work on this and don't just claim on an issue and start working on this, because it helps to foster a certain degree of accountability within the community that this particular person is working on this and this is the time that they would be taking to basically solve this issue. And finally, this is something that almost every open source community out there implores, is that share your contributions and your learnings in public with everyone so that everyone can learn from this. So we have a pretty extensive contribution guide, which is linked upon our LocalStack docs. So you can just get to navigate to that and you can read some of our philosophies and tenets of contributing and how you can get started with the whole thing. Again, most of the things that we have said about right here has also been documented on our LocalStack docs. So you can just pretty much take a look over there and we can help you with the starting building blocks. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the things. And as Thomas mentioned, we are always hiring. So definitely take a look at the LocalStack uh, job section to find your next best role if you're looking for one. Cool. I guess we are almost done with all of the questions right here. Yeah. Any further questions? If no, then maybe we can call an end to this meeting today. So thanks everyone who have joined in, and thanks Thomas and Dominic for all the guidance that you have put out. So have a great rest of the day, everyone, and have a great Hacktoberfest going ahead. Hope to see you in the next community meetup. Bye.
Thanks, Harsh. Thanks for moderating. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.